And for me, it started when I was 4 years old, right? And when I say started, something happened at that time in my life which sort of paved the way for, the journey that I was about to go on and still am on today. 4 years old, I remember, and this is the only memory I have sort of like pre-5 years old. The other was I had an asthma attack and I remember being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. Those are the only two memories pre-5 that I can really vividly see.
Okay, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the One Shot Movement podcast, where we dive deep into entrepreneur stories, talk about success, the journey, pulling out the wisdom from what they've done over an incredible journey in business. I'm super excited today. In fact, I've done a road trip all the way to his office here on the Gold Coast, Australia. He's one of the biggest digital marketing agencies in the world, a multi-award winning agency that's now got an office in LA, expanding his business, but an incredible entrepreneur that's got an incredible story as well, that he's got some amazing stories to tell and share with us about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the things that he's done along the journey, and recently was able to do an interview here at Klaxon with Mr. Grant Cardone. So I want to welcome a Facebook advertising pioneer, incredible entrepreneur, Mr. Brett Campbell.
Oh, mate, that was a fantastic intro. Appreciate it. And glad to have you here. Welcome to the Klaxon headquarters. And firstly, just respect to that. We talked about this interview, when was it? In Fiji? I think it was in Fiji. Yeah, we're sipping on a tonic. What was it? A gin and tonic in the pool. And you asked, if we could do the podcast, and I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. Come up and let's do it at the studio. We're sitting here in our Klaxon studio, fully kitted out. It brings a different environment to a podcast. And mate, you said, yep, let's just make it happen. You jumped on a plane and you're here. So, mate, there's a massive, you talk about this one-shot movement. I mean, you got to take the opportunities that present themselves, and we're here. I'm excited.
Look, I mean, and I did take away a lot off you on that journey. Like when you're with incredible entrepreneurs, just talking to them and having conversation and meaning. And I took a lot out of your journey and building your Klaxon Cast podcast yourself, and what you were doing to get these really good interviews with high-level entrepreneurs. So I did take a lot away from that. So thank you for that as well. Right. So I want to get started with, let's rewind all the way back on your journey. I know a bit of the story because I am a listener of your podcast, of some of the activities that you were doing when you were a young kid back in the working class area in New Zealand. So I'd like you to start there and just transition all the way through and share the story with the audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, we've got 3 days. I guess for me, and I think it's important to set the premise right of where everything starts. And for me, it started when I was 4 years old, right? And when I say started, something happened at that time in my life which sort of paved the way for, the journey that I was about to go on and still am on today. 4 years old, I remember, and this is the only memory I have sort of like pre-5 years old. The other was I had an asthma attack and I remember being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. Those are the only two memories pre-5 that I can really vividly see. So there was that one, but then this one here stands out more so as, 4 years old. I was living in a caravan park in Gosford in Sydney. So I was born in Australia here. 4 years old, got home from school. I was still in my school uniform. I remember this vividly. And I was playing outside the caravan. So we lived in a caravan. And my mum, my sister, my father and myself, so 4 of us living in quite a small caravan. I actually didn't live in the caravan, I lived in the awning outside the caravan, right? So I didn't even get the steel walls, I had like the tent walls. But it was sunny day, super hot, I remember. I was playing outside and I heard my name being yelled out. It's like, Brad, and I was like, oh no, it's because it was my mum. And she's like, in my head, I was like, what have I done, right? Because I was a bit of a rascal kid. And I ran into the caravan and I seen her standing there, and my father was standing opposite her and he had his hands on her, he was about to throw her through the caravan window. And she yelled out to me, she goes, Brett, run across the road and get some help. And that was sort of the memory, and it, due to me simply like sort of throwing a blanket over it all of those years, I have since revisited that and worked through it. But that was the end of it for me. I don't really remember what happened post that, other than my sister and myself and my mother jumped on an airplane a couple of months later and we moved to New Zealand. So we left my father. That was the last time I seen my father as well. So what it showed me at that very young, early age was I took the responsibility on, and I remember saying to my mum, I'll don't worry about it, I'll take care of us. And as a 4 or 5 year old boy, you know, how are you going to take care of anything, right? But I've had that ingrained internally within me for my entire life and entire journey. So it gave me that kickstart, that hunger inside to just do whatever I've got to do to get something done. So it was really that kickstart. And, you know, we moved out of a caravan, and I thought we'd get an upgrade, and we moved to like a very low socioeconomic area in Huntly, in New Zealand, which is a real small little town. To give context, across the road was the mongrel mob pad. And then about 2 streets back was the Black Power gang. We were sort of in the middle of it, right? But look, don't get it wrong. I really enjoyed my childhood running around, you know, with all the kids, bare feet, playing marbles on front lawns, and, you know, just had a real humble beginning. But what it taught me was if I ever wanted anything, I'd have to go and work for it. Because my mum, you know, she was on a benefit. She was trying to look after two young kids. She had part-time cleaning jobs in the interim when we were at school. You know, but we never went without, you know, shoes on our feet unless I decided not to wear them, and a hot meal every single night, right? So I was never deprived as a kid. My mum did everything she could to make that happen for us, and so it gave me it instilled a work ethic within me that is unbreakable. You know, like when I get into real work mode, I'm going to struggle to find someone who will outwork me. Right, and out have the relentlessness of making something happen. Yep. You know, for those who know me closely will know that, gee, yeah, he just, when he wants something, he doesn't give up. Yep. Like a pit bull with a lockjaw. I'm there until the jaw gets ripped open. I'm like, okay, maybe I should stop now, right? So very early on, the entrepreneurial, and again, I didn't know this, right? I come from a town where there was really no entrepreneurs in it, right? But I always knew I was different. And, you know, after my first job, and I call it my first business, looking back at it, was when I was about 11 years old, because at the time my vision was being able to play Street Fighter, the arcade game, and get jet plane lollies. Those were my two outcomes. I was like, okay, Mum, can I have some money so I can go down to the local fish and chip shop so I can play Street Fighter and get some jet plane lollies? She's like, well, no, I don't have money for that. Go and earn it yourself. So I'd literally door knock the entire street. I'd knock on the door. Hey, my name's Brett Campbell. Have you got any jobs for me? Next door. Hey, my name's Brett Campbell. Have you got any jobs for me? No. Hey, my name's Brett Campbell. Do you have any jobs for me? Until someone said, okay, yeah, I've got this job. But what I was finding was my sales pitch wasn't really working. And when I say sales pitch, I didn't know it was a sales pitch. I can look back and reflect on it. And we're talking about this at breakfast. You know, some things just come natural to people. So for me, I was door knocking, and I wasn't getting the response I wanted. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the same houses and go through. Hey, my name's Brett Cameron. Yeah, I know you are. You were here the other week. I was like, I wonder if you've got any jobs for me. And then this is where I changed. I said, I can pick weeds out of your garden. I can wash your car. I'll do your lawns, or I'll take your rubbish out. So I started giving them things, and they're like, oh, actually, okay, you can try and mow my lawns, right? And when I was 11 years old, I was, you know, 45 kilos wringing wet, if that, right? I was a real little kid, and it was hard to push a lawnmower, right? Really, to do it. And in New Zealand, you know, and back then, you know, people actually lived on quarter-acre blocks, you know, like the old way of living, right? Not stacked on top of each other like we do now. So the lawns were quite big, right? So I took that up quite quickly, and I had a number of different lawns that I'd do. So I'd get home from school, and I'd grab the lawnmower. I'd go mow as many lawns as I could that night. I'd do it $5 for a small lawn, $10 for a big lawn. All right, that was sort of my pricing structure. One day I was taking the lawnmower out of the shed, the garden shed, of my stepfather at the time. So my mum found a new partner, and to this day, still been together ever since. You know, the man that really came in and helped shift and change our lives as well and support us. I was pushing the lawnmower. Actually, I was taking the lawnmower out of the shed, and he goes, oh, where are you going with that? I was like, oh, I'm going to go mow some lawns. He goes, oh, okay, yep, cool. And he goes, oh, whose petrol are you using? I said, oh, ours. He goes, whose? I said, ours. He goes, who paid for it? And I said, oh, you. And he goes, yeah. He goes, well, do you think it's fair that, you're I'm paying for the petrol and the lawnmower and you're not paying anything? And I was like, right, looking back, reflection is like, this was my first negotiation that I'd ever been faced with, right? And I was like, instantly, because I like to move fast, I was like, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. In return, what I'll do is I'll mow our lawn for free. And he's like, okay, cool, that's a fair deal, right? We took the petrol cans down to the petrol station to fill them up. And as I filled up the petrol can, it was like $3 for the petrol can. I was like, and this was my first ever time where I felt like I got jibbed in business, right? I was like, $3 to fill the can. I can fill the lawnmower up about 4 times with this, and I can do an entire lawn on a tank. So I was like, it's only costing me about $1 to do each lawn with petrol, right? Give or take a few cents. And then I'd committed to doing our lawn, which was a large lawn, which I could have charged $10 to my stepfather for, and I could have paid for my own petrol. And I was like, right. So it was that. So I've always been wired like that from day one. Yeah. So it started very young, and before I hijacked the entire podcast, because like I said, I've spent a lot of time going through my journey. When I wrote my first book, and I think this is such a powerful thing for anyone listening, especially to do with the one-shot movement type thing. I don't think you can really uncover what that thing is that you're supposed to do internally until you've actually gone back and really taken a fine-tooth comb and looked at your journey and looked at what you've done and looked at the characteristics that you've built over time and you've instilled within yourself beliefs and habits and so forth. And being able to go back through it, I look and I go, there is no way, shape or form that where I am today has anything to do with luck. Right, unless luck means when preparedness meets opportunity. I think that's one of the best things I've ever heard, right? Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. When you're prepared and the opportunity presents itself, sure, you can say it's lucky.
Yeah. I had a good friend of mine talking about interview questions, and I said, and he goes, I usually throw in an interview question that just throws people off. And I said, well, ask me the interview question. And he just said, do you consider yourself lucky? And I like that just said, I make my own luck. And he goes, you know what? That's the first time I've actually heard, someone just within 1 second answer the question. Half the people just sit there and, maybe, I guess so. But, it's quite...
And that's just because people haven't been asked the question or they haven't had the time to think through all of that stuff. It's easy for me to go, luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. It's because I've had this conversation before. I love this sort of stuff, this type of conversation. And whilst I share the story, right, of me mowing lawns and, I went through and knocked on all the doors, there's some valuable lessons because at the heart I'm a teacher as well, right? So when I share a story, I want to teach. There's lessons within everyone's story. Yep. And when I shared that story, I bet you there's hundreds of listeners listening to this right now going, I can relate to that because I sort of did something similar. And then it brings something out with inside that person and go, geez, I am far more resourceful than I think I really am. Or, I do have characteristics that are, empowering and positive and can really help me move forward. Geez, I haven't actually embodied that characteristic for a long time. And, it can bring a lot of things up. So storytelling is it's an amazing skill to be able to have, but that only happens via repetition. I'm sitting here right now, and I say this to you as well, and I jokingly said, do you have 3 days at the start of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
I could sit here and just keep talking without even needing questions because, when I'm in this setting, shit just flows through me, right? Yeah. And I don't mean in a literal sense, although sometimes it has. But it's because I'm so connected to this topic and what we're talking about and how important someone's journey is and the end outcome that you're looking to get from the show. So I'll say to you, again, feel free to jump in on top and go, hey, okay, cool, pivot where you need to because I'll let it roll.
And that, for people, it's different stages where things flow. For me, if I'm running... and I'll just go for a run for exercise, my brain is so creative then. I have to stop and write notes.
Right.
Because I'm just, it's just flowing through me, creativity, thoughts, everything. So, I can get really into a deep zone and very creative and very thinking of what I need to do, and it just flows when I'm exercising effectively.
I'm more creative when I'm being triggered by something, right? And when I say triggered, like put me in a think tank situation, someone will say something, I'm like, oh, bang, I'll take that and then just totally expand it, right? And this is where working great with a team can really open and extract, right? Because I've personally got so much running around in my head, right? I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But inside there's a lot of stuff that if extracted properly, can add a lot of value, right? And for me, creativity comes from not just sitting by myself, and although I can, meditation sort of brings it out sometimes. A shower obviously brings it out, and there's scientific reasons around why showers, can bring out creativity. But for me, I really work well and get a lot of creative flair out of being with someone who provides another opinion or another way of thinking, and then I can build upon that.
Yeah.
So it's important to find out where your best thoughts are created from. Where do they come from?
Unfortunately for me, sometimes it's at 2 a.m. in the morning and I get up and I'm jotting notes. I go,
Right.
If I wake up tomorrow morning and forget what I was just thinking of, that's just a part of genius, and then it'll keep me up for the night. But, that's...
I used to be like that, but I quickly realised that I just need to, if the thought's still there in the morning, then it's important.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be the last thought you have. It's not going to be the last $1 billion or $1 million idea or your last life-changing idea that could change the world. They're going to keep flowing.
Yeah.
It's not like you only get one every month and you've got to take note and stand up and go, oh my gosh, that was the one. Yeah. Right? You just got to let it flow, or else, like you say, you could be distorted the entire night. And then your entire creative flair the next day is gone because you've had terrible sleep.
And on your journey, Brett, we've gone through, say, like childhood and really important parts, foundational parts of your entrepreneurial journey, but prior to Klaxon, you've also been involved in lots of businesses. I would call yourself a pioneer in many cases, like the way you've thought about things, the way you've looked at innovation and trends, and you had one of the fastest growing fitness franchises in Australia. You've were nearly one of the first people to tap into the Facebook advertising movement, which you're still very heavily involved with today. Do you want to just expand a bit more on some of those endeavours and journeys as well?
Yeah, I quickly learnt at an early age that you need to run your own race. So if anything, and I found this in my group, a network of friends and everything, generally if we were to do something, I was the person who really came up with the idea, or, hey, we should do this, or we should do that, and let's do this. And then, and I didn't understand this again until reflection, right? Reflection is such a powerful thing. If we were building a tree hut, I'd decide what tree it was going to go in.
Yeah.
Right. And it just happened organically. That was just natural. So I feel like a natural born leader. I got kicked out of high school, became a cabinet maker, threw into a job, or I took a job that I knew from day one wasn't what I was supposed to do. Right. To then fast forwarding to, 2008, where I literally made probably one of my biggest life changing decisions I was, over in the Gold Coast where I'm now living for a holiday for 2 weeks over a Christmas period. And while I was over here, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to come back and move. And at the time I was at a university. So that's another story. I went to university to study Bachelor of Sport and Leisure. I did 1 year of that, and I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake like I did in my apprenticeship, stuck it out and stayed there way too long. So I was like, you know what, bugger, I'm going to end university and I'm going to move back to Australia. So within 2 weeks, I moved back. I went back to New Zealand, rented out my property that I built, and came back to live in Surfers Paradise. I had one suitcase and my set of golf clubs, and I started a brand new life, and I started in the fitness world. I started just personal training people, and I uncovered through that the online world. So when the first sort of ebooks ever emerged in the fitness space, I was like, oh, this is unbelievable, right? You don't have to actually turn up and train a client. You can sell this thing online, and I could sell it to everyone around the world. So I became addicted to that. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to learn this, right? And I was sharing with you at breakfast this morning, I was sitting down this was when no drag drop WYSIWYG builders and all of those things were available like they are now. You know, what takes me a day now to be able to produce, if I did it, would have taken me a month back then. You know, I was trying to find code on the internet, like what's the countdown timer code that I can use on my page that I've just built that looks quite terrible, but it was there. And, you know, so I really seen it as an opportunity to what really at the core of all of this was, you know, and I'm very careful when I say this because it can sound quite fluffy, and it's not that I care that it sounds fluffy. It's just that sometimes people can miss the mark when they hear it, is that I truly want to have a positive impact on millions of people, right? And there's a lot of people who feel that, and the deep down essence of it all, we all really want to contribute because that's the highest level, I think, of where we can ever get to is contribution, right? Is when you reach the top, it's like, what do we do? The best thing that you can do is contribute. And I mean, we shouldn't have to wait till we get there to contribute either. That's another story. But for me, it was... I felt like I wasn't hitting the mark. You know, I felt like I wasn't hitting the mark, and I was working as a trainer. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, that wasn't the thing that I'd do for free for the rest of my life. Yeah. Right. And that was the defining question for me. Would I do this for free for the rest of my life? I was like, no, I don't. Because I was into fitness, so I thought I'd make a career out of fitness. And then it was online marketing, but the online marketing was simply the vehicle again to reach millions of people. I still wasn't really entirely clear on what that message was, because once you go through health and fitness, you realize it's got nothing to do with health and fitness. It's got everything to do with the mind. It's got everything to do with why we think, act, and feel the way we feel, and what do we do based off that, right? So became obsessed with using the online world to get messages and so forth out there. It just happened that, you know, I became really good at it. Like you said, we built the fastest growing fitness company at the time. We had a fitness franchise. We had fitness retreats. We had, and this was before people were doing this, right? This was before it was really a thing. You know, a fitness college, because then we're certifying people to become trainers themselves. Because we just built this entire ecosystem, our own supplement range, our own clothes, like you name it. We're doing it. We're pioneering it. But an important lesson to that is, and I share this, and this is really speaking to my fellow serial entrepreneurs who really get it, because I can't just, it's really hard for me just to focus on just one thing. Yeah. Like all in on just one thing. It's so hard for my brain. It's like, oh, I can be doing this. I could also do this. Yeah. But the motto that I sort of carry on, well, that I've been carrying around with me for the last, 2.5 years of building Klaxon, because I have had a bit of a pivot, is just because you could, it doesn't mean you should. Yep. Right? Because I could do a lot. I could start you want to know how I started my franchise?
Go for it.
I had an idea, right? We put a post out on Facebook, and because we're getting a lot of interaction. We had a real fast growing community. It was in the female only space, and we put a post. People were saying, "Oh, when are you going to come and train us? When are you going to come here? When are you going to come here?" And we're like, at the time, I just wanted to create an online business, right? Buy into that 4-hour work week type philosophy and mentality, and sit on a laptop at a beach sipping margaritas, right? That's the sort of thing I bought into. I didn't give it much time and thought, because the reality is there's zero chance that I could ever do that, right? My brain wouldn't allow me to do that, right? If I was sitting on an island, I'd be wanting to build an ecosystem on the island and build it into a town, and you know what I mean? Like, I'd just have to be doing something. Yeah. So for me, it was a lot of people were wanting it. So I was like, let's just give them what they want. So I built a sales page, literally wrote it overnight, sent it out to our email database the next day, and I had over 170 fitness professionals want to jump on board with us. Wow. Like overnight. Yeah. I was like, so then I was like, shit, I better learn how to build a franchise. Yeah. Right? I started something, I filmed a video, created a sales page, put a web page up literally overnight, and bang, that's how it started.
So in that situation, you would have had people wanting what you were just about to take out in a franchise, but to set up a franchise, you got agreements and all that sort of stuff. Oh, yeah. That would have been a nightmare.
I had a fast track lesson, man. Like, really, it was a crazy time. And when I say, we had 35 locations in 6 months, mate, it would have been 100 in 6 months if we could have brought them on fast enough. Yeah. Like, we're just totally at capacity. Because back then I didn't really know how to run a business, right? And this is the trap sometimes when you become so good at something that your skill sets in other areas don't match this thing that you're a killer at, which in this case, if you're really good at marketing and you never have to worry about, like I've never had to worry about where a customer's coming from because it's come naturally because I just seem to be able to have that knack of doing what we need to do to get that. Where a lot of businesses I know who that's the biggest thing they struggle with. They've got the best product, they've got the best service, they've got the great processes, they've got the great delivery mechanisms, all of those things, but they just don't have customers. I've never had to worry about customers, right? So you learn a lot when you're because I share, and you're at the event the other week, our Digital Growth Summit event that we ran, our first round of events for Klaxon, which is fantastic, where I talk about the night that I generated 12,564 leads overnight. And I ask the audience, I go, who wants 12,564 leads? And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, but do you know what you do with them? Right? People don't know what to do with them either, right? I knew what to do with them, but it came so fast, right? Shit was happening so fast that there was so many things on the plate. Like it was a crazy time. But then that moved into creating a consulting company, into the Unleash Your Greatness side of things, but more so Klaxon now, which is the project for the last 2.5 years. We're a multi-award-winning digital growth agency. We just opened our office prior to Christmas in LA in America. And prior to that, I had a number of other things. I've scaled back a lot so I can really put 90% of my heart and soul into Klaxon, because I've realized that as an entrepreneur, and this word in itself is quite vague, because it's like, what's an entrepreneur? Someone who just has an idea and tries to build a business. Well, I don't. If we want to leave that as a classification, then I look at the serial entrepreneur, which is someone who has to be doing multiple things at the same time. I realized that there really wasn't a 100% focus on just one thing. I get more out of being able to focus on a couple of external little things, part-time, 10%, right? So I've got another mobile app company that we've got as well, but it takes a very little amount of my mental bandwidth. That's the important part. The mental bandwidth requires little thinking, right? But what that little thinking does is allows me this little escapism from the grind of building a digital growth agency, which we have. We've got 20 staff. Like, there's a lot of things that happen within that. It provides me that little element of escapism. So when I do jump back in for the 95% of what I'm really focusing on, I'm coming back with a different way of thinking and so forth. So
I just rewind a little bit. You're talking about business and business owners, and it's quite I love talking to people about business, because I always think people get into business because they want to create their own future, but don't really know what they're signing up for. Like for me, in business, you've got all those different areas in business, and you're getting into business for the end result and the freedom, the lifestyle, whatever reason to give back, whatever it is. But some people, you get into business and all of a sudden you become a lawyer, an accountant, a HR person, a fulfillment, a customer service person. There's all of these different roles and different hats that a lot of people do, and they actually hate doing that. So that was something for me. But I owned 5 gyms, I had lots of staff, I was franchising business, etc. But what I really loved doing was going out there and telling a story and marketing and selling. And but I got caught up with all of these other extra bits. Do you want to talk a bit about business and requirements and what your spin on that?
Well, I think a lot of people, solopreneurs or self-employed people, they're what I call accidental entrepreneurs. They've sort of fallen into something, and you alluded to at the start there, as people get into business for the freedom and the lifestyle. A lot of people who get into business have no idea what lifestyle they even want. They have no idea what freedom looks like to themselves. So they're in this grind of doing something, selling WYSIWYG A or whatever it is, right? And they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know the end goal of it. There's no sort of future outcome around it. They're just like, well, let's just see how it goes. Let's just run some ads, or let's just promote it on social media, and we'll see if we can make sales. And if we can, we'll make something of it. It's like, you don't need to sit down and have this, fully detailed dot by dot business plan when you're trying to launch something, but you need to have future projection of where you really want to see this thing. Like where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? Create what's the ultimate outcome if this does work? What will it look like? Because a lot of people will fall into something, and you're right, they become the inventory, the shipping, the customer service, the marketer, the sales. Yep. That's what I call, you've just got yourself a very stressful job. It's not a business until you start building a team.
Yeah.
A business requires other people to be able to complete certain requirements so a business can grow. So I think the term business and entrepreneur, it's getting thrown around or used too loosely because, you look 10 or 20 years ago, a business wasn't Barry shoe shining shoes on the corner.
Yeah.
Right? A business was a local business that had staff and employees that hired people.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, and if you believe, because this is the crossroads, right? And this is how I get a lot of entrepreneurs to really see themselves in the mirror and go, damn, I'm doing myself and my potential customers a disservice. Is if you truly believe that you want to help, more than the current people you're helping. And for most people, they want to help minimum thousands or hundreds of thousands, right? Most people I speak to anyhow. But if you just want to help, handful of local people, cool, stick to what you're doing, that's great. But I'm talking to people who want to make a dent in the universe, right? If you're not doing everything you can from day one to try and build a strong team around you so you can become the best version of you, right? Because with my team, they allow me to become the best version of me because it allows me to sit and do and be in the things that I am the best at doing, right?
Yeah.
And Dan Sullivan calls this the unique ability. I like to operate in my unique ability, which is literally sitting here talking to you, having conversations, sharing, educating, teaching, helping motivate the team, helping motivate, prospects of our clients and people listening. And that's what I would do for free for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It then becomes, what do I want to talk about, right? Because words can change the world.
Yeah.
They can start and end wars.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's like, how can I be in my unique ability the majority of my time? And constructing and building infrastructure around that'll be able to support that.
And it's probably a good point to talk about this topic, Claxon Cast. We're in your studio now, and I do appreciate you inviting me up here, and it's an incredible setup. But you've been able to interview some of the biggest names in the world, like really the Grant Cardones, Michael Lane, like many high level. There's a lot of learning when you sit in an environment like this and you're picking the brains of a Grant Cardone. But I guess the way you've been able to navigate your way through to landing interviews, there's a lot of learning for entrepreneurs out there. I remember talking to you in Fiji, and you said to me, Craig, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but who knows you, and that was a really profound takeaway. Sort of always operated that way, but it was just like the words sort of stuck to me. Yeah. And I left there, I said, my goal now is to get every person in the world to know who I am, and that was like a really powerful message, even though I was sort of trying to do that in its own way.
Subconsciously, but it's when it punches you in the face, you're like, shit. Like it does. It's just a constant reminder of going, you could be the best kept secret, right? Like if you want to have an impact on millions of people, and man, even when I'm talking about this now, I'm like, I'm still not playing big enough. I'm still not doing everything that I can or should or could be doing, right? And it's not because I'm trying to be, I don't think I'm doing anything. It's just like when I've got a desire to keep wanting to pursue and push and pull myself further forward, that's the fire that keeps me going.
Yeah.
Right. When you reach complacency, it just becomes, it's right. We'll do another one next week, or I'll put a video out, in a couple of days. I don't really, you can just get super lazy around it. But the point around, interviewing other people, and I talked about this at the event, and I'm just going to assume the question out of that was, how do we land people like that? Yeah, cool. Thought I was on the same page. And I remember this vividly because when I said it like at the event last week, I've seen a lot of people go, oh, like there was an aha moment with it, right? And, you know, I truly believe the number one strategy to be known is be at the right place at the right time, saying the right thing to the right person. So let's break that down. Be at the right place at the right time. So a lot of people just think that you have to mysteriously, oh, I'm going to go through everyday life, and if I happen to be at the right place at the right time, it'll all work out. Yeah. So, well, here's how we can hack that, right? Can you purposely put yourself at a certain place at a certain time? Yeah. Right? And I'll share an example of that is, you know, one particular person that I was able to interview, which the interview itself will turn into multi-millions of dollars over the next few years. I know that for a fact. I rang this person and said, hey, I'm going to be in Sydney next week. Did you want to catch up for coffee? And I said, I'll be down there on Wednesday. And they're like, oh, I can't do Wednesday. I can do Thursday. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'll still be around on Thursday. What time do you want to catch up? It's like, oh, 2 p.m. I'm like, cool, 2 p.m. So I hopped off the phone and then I booked a ticket, right? Yeah. I wasn't going to be in Sydney, but I was going to be in Sydney, right? Yeah. So that in itself, think about that. I put myself at the right place at the right time. Tick, check, that box is ticked. Yeah. The next part is saying the right thing to the right person. Yeah. So, of course, then I need to know, well, am I going to make the most of this opportunity? Am I prepared for this opportunity, right, to build a relationship? Because this is what it is. If you want the secret to landing anyone on a podcast or to talk to anyone, you need to build a relationship, right? Yeah. And this is the how do you build a relationship stuff, okay? Is you need to be prepared to say the right thing. Like if you're unprepared, you don't know nothing, and you're just going to try and, you know, skip your way through it, then good luck. Yeah. It's not going to work optimally for you, right? And of course, the right person, well, I'm assuming you've met with the right person. You know, you're not going to spend time wasting your time talking to the wrong person. Yeah. However, when it comes to like higher level relationships, sometimes you need to go through the third tier connection, right? So I might need to, this is to the extent I would go. If it meant getting in front of the right person that I've been looking to try and get in front of, right, I'd fly to America to meet a third tier connection of someone that could connect me with someone else who could then connect me with that person, right? It's relationships. Yeah. That's how important these things are. So it's being at the right place, right time, saying the right thing to the right person. Yeah. Yeah, look, I can totally relate to that, and I'll share a little example to the audience. As I said to you yesterday, I interviewed Brad Sugars, who Entrepreneur Magazine listed him as the biggest business coach in the world, with 1,000 franchisees worldwide. So I interviewed him, but I first approached him, complimented him as a DM, didn't get a response. Then I would comment on his news feeds, and you know, him or his PA would be, you know, giving you your little responses back. Then I mentioned to him that I was interviewing a business colleague of his, Travis Bell, who they were doing a business together. So he probably thought about it there for a second. Then I went back again a month or two later and said, look, Brad, I really respect what you're doing in 2020. I cut my teeth reading all your books back in 2002 and Billionaire in Training. I still follow that formula as of today. No response again. Then I sent him, hey, Brad, I'd love to interview you for my upcoming podcast because, you know, it's all around one-shot movement. You got one shot at life, go out there and give it your best shot. You know, I won't waste your time. Here's a story that I was just interviewed on Yahoo Lifestyle. And then he goes, that looks good. Here's my PA, book in a time. Let's do the interview. So it was a process. Persistence, man. That's the key, dude. It's like be at the right place at the right time, talking to the right person, saying the right thing to the right person, and have the right follow-up. Because just because you got that first step, it doesn't mean that you've closed a deal or what your end outcome has been achieved. It's persistence, consistently and persistently following up. right? Like I've closed the biggest deal that I remember closing. When I say biggest in regards to, it took me the longest and the most. It took me 27 follow-ups, 27, and I counted it because I was like, you know what? I'm going to be able to share this with our team. I'm going to be able to share this with people moving forward. Going, if you think you're going to close a deal in 2 or 3 DMs, you have got to be absolutely kidding yourself. Yeah. Sometimes a unicorn like that will come across the board and be like, cool, it might happen. Like right now I'm finalising some things to interview, without giving it away, one of Australia's top 3 richest people in the country worth like $13 billion. And people are like, how'd you do that? It's actually quite simple. It was from a relationship. It was through a 3rd tier to a 2nd tier, right? And this is the value in it. It's like, if you can't get Jay-Z straight to Jay-Z, who's like the 5th tier of Jay-Z, someone who might know, hey, you might have to pay 10 grand to go to a party or a ball or invest in a charity to be around that vicinity or proximity of it. You just got to go, how important is it? Like you flew up to Melbourne, cost you money, there's a plane ticket, there's accommodation, pretty nice place to come to, Surfers Paradise. It's not like we're going in the middle of Timbuktu, so you're like, oh, I've got to stay in got to stay in the middle of nowhere and have a terrible time. But, mate, you made it happen. You didn't sit and go, oh, it's going to cost a few $100. This is, oh, da, 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 da. It's like, man, like people need to start seeing what the potential future opportunity of something means.
And I remember, like, while we're on this topic, we were, again, around the pool in Fiji, great time, great conversation. And you asked me a question. You asked me, why are you a part of this mastermind, which I gave you an answer to that. But then you said, what are 2 guiding principles that you've always lived by? And I said, we both agreed it was a ridiculously broad question. Yeah. But I sort of said, look, I've always lived by leverage. So if I can't leverage something, I probably won't do it. So I'll look into leverage. But the other one I said was how to build relationships. And I said, I've always lived by those 2 things for as long as I've been making money. And, to go to the point that I still, one weekend every year, catch up with my kindergarten friends, that they're all miners working in the middle of nowhere now, but I make that effort because you just never know what will happen. Yep. And when somebody says to me that they don't want to do a business deal with me now, I say, look, no problem, let's maintain a relationship, because you never know. I buy real estate. And you might be a real estate agent. If you treat me terrible now, just imagine what's going to happen when you're trying to sell me a house.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's living by the core values of how you want to be perceived as a person and how you want to be showing up as a person, and it really comes back to that philosophy. It doesn't matter what you know or who you know, it's who knows you and who likes you. It doesn't matter if you like them. Do they like you? Do they see you as trustworthy? Do they see you as a person that they want to engage with? That's what relationships are. It's like that. Again, I asked this the other day. It's like, what's the sort of percentage split? What should be the percentage split in a relationship? Most people are like 50-50. I'm like, no, it should be 100-100. Yeah. Right? Each person needs to put in 100%. But the reality is there's always going to be one person who does give a little bit more. Like, it's just going to happen. Yeah. Right? And whether that be if you want to split it down, someone's giving 101%, someone's giving 100%. Yeah. There will always be, and in the starting of a relationship, the person who will give more is the person who wants the relationship more. That's just what happens.
Yeah, and I always just have that. I have that running constantly in the back of my mind. Yep. Is, am I taking too much out of this relationship, or have I got credits in the bank? And the only person I would say in my relationship world that I'm behind on is my mentor that I first come across when I was 20, because he's helped me navigate through situations. He's helped me learn property. He's helped me build businesses. He's opened doors of people. Yeah. So, again.
But here's the flip side, man, of that, right? And I'll be devil's advocate. I don't think you're behind, because as you know better than anyone, is contribution is the most rewarding thing you can ever have, right? So when you mentor someone or when you give someone advice and they go and implement it, they probably think they owe you the world, but you're like, man, you've given me the world. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Because that's the level of being able to give. Like, I love when I share stuff and people go, oh man, I listened to this. Like there's someone who comes to all of my events. They've been to all of my events. There's a couple of people that stick out. They've never bought a product. They've never bought anything off me. Yeah. They've used all my free information and all of that, and they're going really well. And I love that more because they're so enthused by what they've learnt, and they're implementing it and they're doing it, and it's like there doesn't have to be a transactional component of money. Don't get me wrong, I love money and I want a lot of it, right? Put it out there. But it doesn't, there's no like quid pro quo, I can't even say it. I've heard it so much. Quid pro quo, right? You scratch my back, I have to scratch your back. That's not how it should work. Because then you're just sort of, taking $1, putting $1 in your bank. Doesn't matter who's good. A fulfilled relationship is where someone will just go above and beyond and do something. And then it's not about putting a value on everything, even though there is this unseen, unspoken sort of bank account, emotional bank account, as we call it, and that's why when you're with a partner, right, with your wife or something, like me and my wife might have a little argument that if it was me and someone else or a friend, it'd be like, it could be the end of a relationship. But because we've got so much emotional bank account dollars stacked up, it's like it's just a little scratch. You know what I mean? So each relationship does have a weighting, and each relationship needs to have a tension to it. And there is that consistency. You talk about meeting with your kindergarten friends every so often, and I bet when you connect, it's like you sort of all default back to the who you are and what you're doing and all of that stuff, and that's refreshing at times, right? And you got to work at relationships, especially new ones. And if you are the person who is really trying to play the long game and trying to, because it's a hard thing, right? Because it's like, are you just building this relationship to get something out of it, right? That's an interesting thing to think about. Are you pursuing this person because you want something from it? Well, the answer is yes, you actually are. So when you can come to the reality of that, like, I am actually pursuing this. You hear people talk about just give with absolutely zero expectation of receiving. It's like, well, I don't know about that. That's not how it really works. It's like Bill Gates or any billionaire who's giving away billions of dollars. They're not just giving it away not expecting anything in return. They're expecting their money to go to fix polio or to eradicate some disease. So there's always something in return. Know that, right? Because I think there's this philosophy that's like just give without any expectation. Now, I get that. It's not like, hey, Craig, you do this for me, and now I'm expecting you to introduce me to Bob, right? Like, I'm not expecting that. But there is an underlying always of some form of expectation, especially when you're trying to forge a relationship in business. Because business is transactional, man. Yeah. Relationships can become transactional, which is not a bad thing either. You just need to know what it is and where it is and why it's happening the way it's happening. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of misguided information out there or narratives around this, do something and don't expect anything. Yeah. Beneath that 3 layers deep, there's an expectation of something. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Just, I guess while we're talking about business and everything, your Klaxon business is in the digital marketing space.
Digital growth
space. I want to, things have changed a lot since you started in 2008, 9 or whatever to now. Just touch on a couple of key things that have changed rapidly that will make a huge difference. But also, you often talk to me about what's your strategy. Yeah. And it's not just Facebook ads. It's not just... Talk about you getting a client here at Klaxon and looking at a strategy so people actually can contextually take that to...
Let me explain firstly why I said digital growth, okay? Because people say social media marketing, they see digital marketing, and it's like, what does each of those really even mean, right? We're a digital growth agency. What we do is we grow businesses using digital, okay? Very important distinction. And you could be going, oh, but I run Facebook ads to grow my business. Like, well, do you really, right? Do you really? And let me come back here because this is a narrative I've been having a lot lately. And I'll start by framing it. We don't build ads. We build businesses, okay? We happen to create and design and execute advertising through a number of different paid channels, Facebook being one of them. All the social, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, Spotify. Then there's the search, which is the YouTube, Google Shopping. Then there's programmatic, which is everything else basically. On-demand TV advertising, on your 9 Nows, 10 Plays, etc. The online apps, anywhere else on the internet that advertising can go, right? And then the fourth pillar for us is data, so deep data, okay? That right there is not digital marketing, right? Because there's marketing will do one thing. It can flood a business, right? Like I got flooded with leads. I got flooded with potential business when I did the franchise and all that, the other stuff that I've done, right? Digital growth looks at your business, looks at your outcomes, where you're moving towards, is pure in alignment with growth of your company, right? What are the KPIs? What are the targets? What do you need to hit? Why do we need to hit that? What does that look like month on month? How do we phase that and grow the business? Totally different conversation. And that's why I say digital growth. We have created our own category of digital growth, right? You'll start hearing a lot of people talk about digital growth because I'm just going to be 2020 is the year of digital growth. I'm just going to be smashing that conversation because it changes the way business owners will start to look and are starting to look at their business, because it's not a matter of just create some ads, right? I was saying to you earlier, the reason why you see you don't see accounting courses like how to be an accountant, like a $299, do your own tax. There's no represent yourself in court courses, right? Because there's an industry for it. There's lawyers and there's accountants. Yeah. You see courses right now like how do you do your own Facebook ads? How do you do this? And look, don't get me wrong, because I was the guy who learned it all myself. I didn't have no courses. I didn't have anyone teach me to do it because I was sort of at that forefront of let's just try it. I was throwing money and seeing what was happening. Right before we started our agency, I'd spent over $2 million in advertising just on Facebook alone, right? So I'd cut my teeth in it. But the reason why we're still seeing that, and the reason why there's still a lot of people out there going, hey, how do I do this? How do I, what sort of campaign should I have? What type of creative should I have? What should I say here on this ad? It's because the industry is still setting, right? I posted a video, actually, I'm going to be posting a video today on my Instagram, which is talking about this exact thing. It's like the industry right now is cake batter, right? We haven't even put it in the oven. It hasn't even started to cook. So we're in the infancies of this. Right, we're just at the coalface of it, so I can see it. I know the conversations because I talk to hundreds of business owners every single year personally about their business, their problems. What are they wanting to do? How are they going to achieve that? And businesses are starting to and need to quickly start treating marketing like it is the most important pillar in their business, because it really is. Without leads, without sales, without being able to convert people through, you got nothing. You're the best kept secret. Yeah. Right. So the industry itself is still so fresh. It's a bit of wild, wild west out there. People still think they should be doing it themselves. Back to your original point, you get in business, you got an idea, you become an accidental entrepreneur, you got a product, and all of a sudden, you love designing shoes, but all of a sudden now you're having to do every other part of the business but design shoes because you're struggling to find time to do the thing that you actually love doing in the first place. You need to start treating your business seriously, and you need to start finding experts who can do those things for you. And the reason why we exist, and the reason why we're going to continue to exist and grow, is there's no industry out there for it right now. It's a lucky dip for a lot of people going out there to try and find someone to, because again, 80% of the conversations that we're having is with business owners who are like, yeah, I tried, my mate that were doing my ads for a bit and it just wasn't working, so it doesn't really work for us. Or this company promised me this result and we didn't get it. Firstly, if there's a company out there promising you any result, I'd be running for the hills because, even though I believe we're best in class at what we do, we don't guarantee a specific result. Like if you hire someone into your organization, think about this, right, for a way of thinking. Let's say you hire Barry into your marketing team and you're like, Barry, you have to get this result or you're fired. Like you need to guarantee us this, Barry. It's like, sheesh, that's a rough gig to jump into, right? Because no one knows. Like, there's so many things you need to think about before you even run an ad. Like, does your brand actually represent what you think it does? There's only so much lipstick you can put on a pig, right? Like, if you're marketing something that looks terrible or the messaging is wrong. It doesn't matter how good your advertising placements are. It doesn't matter how many leads you get if your sales team doesn't know how to convert. Doesn't matter how many leads you get if your sales are converting well, but your fulfillment's not working and there's a massive refund rate because your product's shit. Like there's so many variables in business, you know. So I certainly land back to you need to start thinking seriously about and putting on what I call the business builder lens, right? The lens of looking at how do you grow your business. And right now, the flavor of the month is social advertising, search advertising, programmatic, right, and deep data, which are the 4 key things that we focus on here in the business. You just need to start taking it seriously. People aren't. Businesses aren't.
And you say that this is in its, infancy.
Yeah.
It's a competitive industry still, but, you there's players and then there's players, so everyone's
It's competitive at the low end of town.
Yeah.
And when I say low end of town, the entry level end of town. So that's where it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because Mary, who's got a new product or she's just created a course and she wants to become an expert, she's like, yeah, I'm going to go see my friend Sarah or someone. I put a post out on Facebook going, who can do ads? And of course you're going to get flooded with DMs of people going, well, I couldn't make it work for me, but I'm sure I could make it work for you. Yeah, you could pay me a couple of grand a month and I'll run your ads for you. And then all of a sudden, Mary's course doesn't work because the advertising's not right. It's not built around a strategy. It's just like, let's just see if this ad sticks.
Yeah. But you say listen to some of the commentators. Let's call Gary Vee one of those commentators. He would talk about the competitive nature, or even one of our friends, Jack DeLosa, talks about his ad spend now is not traveling and not working as well as what it was,
of course,
3 years ago. So would you say that infancy as growth strategists is entry level, but Facebook advertising and that's starting to become more competitive?
Look, everything's becoming competitive by the day. Even 2017, right, to give context, February 2017, Facebook literally came out and said, hey, we're increasing ad spend costs. They increased by 43%. So to put in context, what used to cost you $1 for something, it'll cost you $1.43 for the exact same thing. That's 43 cents. That's a lot. 43% is the entire profit of majority of businesses ripped out. So if you're running thin to the margin with that, and we actually had a funnel that was doing about 20 grand a month, autopilot. There was probably about 20% in it. Mate, the ad increase cost just killed it straight away.
Yeah.
Like bang, done.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. It's going to evolve, and it's going to happen like that. But we now live in a different world. It's an omni-channel approach. It's no longer just let's just use Facebook.
Yeah.
We need to go, where are your customers hanging out? We need to build individualized, customized journeys for each individual based off what they want, based off their interactions. That is where the skill wins, and that's why you need a team of highly skilled people, because an individual solopreneur can't think about that because they want to design shoes, right? So we need to treat the industry with some respect.
Yeah.
And I get it though, because if it's hard, it's not like you can. There's a lot of people that will put their hand up to help you, but you have to weed through it, right? And it becomes time consuming. And then if you've been burned a couple of times, you're like, I'm just going to do this myself. So I get it. I understand the struggle.
Yeah. Also, just we're having a chat around breakfast time, a project that you are deeply connected to, and it was Unleash Greatness.
Unleash Your Greatness.
Unleash Your Greatness. Yep. Do you want to talk about how that come about and your vision for it? We're having a really profound conversation around, you've got to go all in and everything. So I'd love the audience to hear a bit about that.
Yep. So it was around we were building the franchise. Everything was going absolutely crazy. We had more interest than we could handle. We built a fitness college, and at the same time I was like, let's just build another online info product. So we sort of came into the space. I'd say we're definitely in the first dozen people, well, certainly in that first round of people who would create online info products, back when, Craig Ballantyne and John Benson, like the sort of the real, like when they sort of popped out with the pro, I was like, oh, that's what we want to do, that 2008 type scenario. And every time we did a product launch, we could make 100 grand in just a couple of days, sell it because we had an audience. So I was like, the franchise was going, everything was going. I was like, let's build another info product. You know, me being me, threw it on top of the workload that I was already having. So I realized that I didn't have enough time to do it. So, but I'd already committed to it because and here's another thing, I'd already committed to it because we'd already let our database know that something really special was coming and this and that, and we had to deliver, right? So it was an accountability thing as well. I had to do it. So I was at the office at 4 a.m. till 9 a.m. working on a new info product. From 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. on the franchise. And then 5 p.m. till let's call it 9 p.m. until I passed out basically on the info product, right? So I was doing so much, everything, and and it was exciting because I knew when we launched, I was like, well, here's another 6-figure payday. This is going to be exciting, right? And I was just blinded by things that were happening so well, and it was great. And a couple of really significant things happened. So when I left Australia, or New Zealand in 2008, one of my best friends, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she, I literally moved over when that happened. So I really wasn't around it, right? She went through chemotherapy, she had surgery, and she came out the other side and she was all good, right? Which is fantastic. Because it wasn't really, it's that out of sight, out of mind, right? I wasn't really around it, so it wasn't really a thing. A couple of years later, she had a headache, went to the doctors, and they said, oh no, you've got brain cancer now. I was like, holy crap. And this time I was like, well, I want to, I'm going to go over and see her. And so, I flew over and seen her. I went to chemotherapy with her, sat in the room. That in itself was a very humbling experience. So this time I was a little bit more involved in that. And then, so she was going through the end of chemo, which is fantastic. They were like, yep, signs are looking great. I rang up my best mate, her husband, and said, hey, I probably need a little bit of a break as well. So let me come over and I'll hang out with you guys for a week. And I said, oh, when should I come over? And he goes, well, she gets out of hospital, like Monday. She'll be at home on Monday. And this was like Friday I was calling. And I said, okay, cool. I'll find some time on my calendar. I'll come over in a couple of weeks. And I hopped off the phone, hopped onto, it was Jetstar. I was booking a ticket. And I got to the point to check out and I was like, I had this weird feeling, like so weird. I'd never really had it like this before. But it was like the universe came down and said, stop, don't book it. So I was like, oh, okay. Cancelled the booking, rang up my mate. I said, hey man, I'm actually going to come over on Tuesday. Is that cool? Like in 4 days. Because I was like, I'm not going to wait. Why wait? So I was like, cool, I'll come over on Tuesday. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure, if you can. And I had the ability to be able to do that as well, which was great. Jump on the plane, head over there. I arrive in New Zealand Monday night. I ring him and say, hey, you guys home? And she settled in. He's like, yeah, yep. She doesn't even know I was coming, which is cool. And I said, well, I'll see you tomorrow morning about 9 o'clock. I'll get dropped off. So I got a taxi Tuesday morning, dropped off. He walks out the driveway to meet me. And he's like, oh, I just want to let you know, she's she had a pretty rough night last night, didn't really sleep so well, so she's asleep right now. So when we go in, we'll just sort of be quiet and let her sleep. I was like, okay, cool. And they lived in a really small house, right? Like a little old timber cottage. New Zealand are pretty well known for them, like little small cottages. To give context, the hallways were that small that because she had to still be in a hospital bed because she needed to be elevated because of the chemotherapy, that they could only fit the bed in the lounge room. So as you walk through the front door, bang, she's like literally there. And I'm talking like maybe a 4x4 meter room. Yeah. Their lounge room, and she was on one side against the wall in this hospital bed. And I walk up next to her and just sit down beside her and held her hand. It was like ice cold, and her eyes open and she stared at me and like it was a shock to her, obviously. And she goes, Brett, thank you so much for coming, right? And I was like, of course, I'm here for a week. We're gonna be able to hang out. 3 hours later, she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 hours later, mate, I was sitting there on the couch and I witnessed something that was just, it was, she called out to her husband, so my best mate, and I said, Dara, she wants to see you. And she was if you've ever seen a cancer patient decline, like I'd never seen it, so I didn't really know what's happening. You can see the decline, like you can literally see it happening in time. Yeah. And like she was struggling to breathe properly, and she was coughing, and she couldn't even put her hands up because she was getting chest pain, so she was trying to hold her hands up on a hook that she was being able to hold onto, and she couldn't even lift her arms up. So I was sitting on the couch literally from pretty much you to me away, where, or maybe another half a metre back. And he comes around right next to her, and from like nowhere, her arm just goes whoosh, straight up around his neck, looked into his eyes, like directly into his eyes. They didn't say a word. She put her hands down, and literally like a minute after he walked out of the room, bro, I sat there and I was watching this, and she just drifted off. I was like,
yeah,
holy fuck. Like, it was so crazy. And then I jumped into action mode, right? I was like, fuck, I need to sort this out, because if it was her mum and parents were there, and me, and of course everyone was just losing it. You know, I mean, I expected to come over and hang out with them, and she's getting better and everything, but then to pass away like that, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to sort this out. I need to let everyone know about it. I need to organise things. I jumped on the plane a week later. It was almost like this was supposed to happen, man, like the universe. And I wish we had more time, because this story, there's so many things in it that I'm just like, what? To the point where I bought a black dress shirt with me. I was like, well, I'll just bring one just in case we go out or something, right?
Yeah.
To the point where it was so crazy. But I was sitting on the plane on the way home, and I just literally burst out in tears. And it wasn't as, 100% around that she'd passed, because I'd mourned the whole week. You know, she was in a Māori family, and Māori funerals sort of, it's that sort of week-long thing, and I think it's one of the best things, in a shitty situation, but to be able to celebrate the life of someone throughout that week. So the reason why I really broke down was because I realized that life was so short, man. At any time it can be taken away from you, and I was working so hard just trying to do the next thing, that I wasn't paying attention to what I was put on this planet to do. And I wasn't put on this planet to run Facebook ads, to build online courses, to build like that. That's not what I was put on this planet to, and I knew that. Yeah. And I'd known that from 16 years old when I became an apprentice cabinet maker. I felt like I was a fraud to myself. Yeah. Right? And it was that realization, that moment. And that's where the whole Unleash Your Greatness was born. I was like, I owe it to myself and so many people, because I knew I had... Because the 5 years prior to that, I'd been on such a deep personal development journey trying to figure out who this lost kid was, who just had ambitions for something, but I didn't know what it meant or why I even had it. And I learnt a lot along the way, and I realised that I'm an educator, I'm a teacher. I can really transfer information that can be quite complex to people, that can be quite easy to understand and make it land. And so I created a brand called Unleash Your Greatness. I was like, let's run some events, let's run some retreats. So we do some deep immersion retreats. I wrote a book about it. And I quickly realized that I was doing a disservice to that, because I had, multiple other businesses and brands. I was doing a disservice to Unleash Your Greatness, because that project there requires every single ounce of my soul, and I wasn't able to give it to it right then. So, the short story of that is that, I put it on ice prior to starting Klaxon. Yeah. Post Klaxon, whenever that may end up becoming, Unleash Your Greatness will be transformed into something that will make even a bigger impact than it would have.
Yeah. I look at, as I'm sitting here listening to that story, and this is really what it's about. One shot at life, go out there and give it your best shot. I was listening to and drawing some parallels. There's a big section in one of the chapters of my book talking about my wife and I. Life was great. And we were a bit over 1 month away from having our first boy, and we're just leading into that process. And at the same time, Karen's granddad, who was 92 at the time, all he wanted to do in his last moment was to see his great grandson. He lived over in the UK, we lived here, and he got a phone call to say to Karen's mum, you're going to have to come over, he's probably got 1 week to live. So there was this race against the clock type of thing. He didn't die in a week, he's sort of holding on, and then we lose Ethan and go through the grieving process, and Karen's mum was on the other side of the world. That was traumatic. So, we were just thinking, David's going to be gone as well very shortly. But he lived until we had Zach 13 months later, then lived until in a bed. He never got out of bed again, pretty much, until Zach was 7 months, and we went over to the UK, and we arrived at his house, got a photo of Zach and him looking into each other's eyes, and he passed 12 hours later. Like, it was such a, when you were talking about that, you know, looking in each other's eyes and, you know, happening. It's certainly
it's crazy,
universal thing. It's amazing.
It is. Yeah, it creates tectonic shifts within inside someone, and it makes you realize, you know, what's really important. Like right now, there's, you know, as of recording this, you know, Kobe Bryant's just passed away, right? Firstly, you know, when something like that happens with someone who's such a well-known figure, there's this outpour of obviously emotion and sadness that this person in particular has passed away. But I hope, and this is just obviously my own hope around this, is that people realize that could be anyone. That could be your brother, your uncle, your sister, your auntie, your wife, your child. Like, pay attention to that and use this as an example. It's, you know, whilst obviously it's absolutely sad that Kobe's passed, because he means things to other people and help people through certain things, or whatever their connection to it is that. But I hope the real outcome that people get from it is to show that they need to start paying more attention to their own loved ones, right, and themselves. Yeah. Because, man, you look at that and you're like, a guy's on top of the world, flying in a helicopter to training and back, and, you know, with his daughter, like, everything's going great, amazing, gone.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Man, it's, you know, right now I urge you, after you listen to this podcast, or even right now, stop this podcast, put it on pause, and honestly do yourself a favor and call someone that you love, and or even just jump in your Facebook Messenger and just send someone a message and go, hey man, or hey babe, or hey love, or whatever it is. Say, just want to let you know I'm thinking of you. Hope you're having a great day. Yeah. That can make someone's day, and it'll make you feel so, you know, so more empowered and connected to that relationship. Because when they're gone, man, you're just left with a memory. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. We could be talking for another 3 hours, and I
told you 3 days at the start of it. You know,
this conversation's been incredible, and I would love to continue to do it. But at the end of every episode, I always like to just fire a few quick questions your way. I'm actually going to throw a curveball in as the first question, because
I feel like I know what this question is. My intuition's telling me I know what it already is. I'm like, God, go.
You have been given the grand permission from Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, who's having a day off, and he's said, Brett, I'm actually finished for work for today or this week. As a part of you running Facebook, you get the opportunity to do one post that every person on Facebook's going to see. So what do you do with your one and only post?
Man, I normally it's me asking that question, so thanks for taking my question and flipping it on me. Because it's a tough question.
I know, everyone's had such a different answer.
Very, and there's a number of ways that we could answer it. I mean, the thing that pops into my head is if it's a Twitter post, right? So let me clarify. You can tell I've thought about this. If it's a Twitter post, your short characters, it's literally going to be, you know, life's too short to not be living to your full potential. You know, what are you actually going to do about it, right? Yeah. It's along those lines of life's too short. I need to create some form of impact that is going to wake people and shock people, right? So that's the overarching, what I want people to leave from once they've seen the post or watched the video. Because I'm allowed a video, is I want people to wake up to the reality that shit can be taken from you in the next 10 seconds. You could get a phone call in the next 10 seconds and your life can be changed forever, you know. And look, no matter what you do, a lot of the times you just can't help that. But it's that the whole concept of don't live with regrets, right? if you've done something in the past and it wasn't good, or it was bad, or you've hurt people, right the wrong, or just you have to let it go, because you can't let it continue to eat you up.
Yeah.
Because you've got so many more chapters ahead of yourself, touch wood, right? That you can't be living this new version of you with the old beliefs, the old way of living. So something that really is going to shock someone to go, man, that's so true. That's so true. If you were to say to me that every person watched the entire video, right, I would literally share this story around my friend that I just shared there. Rest in peace. I would share, because there's a much more detailed, deeper version of that story, and if people were going to listen to it all, I feel it's the most powerful story I've ever been able to share that creates the most visceral response. Yeah. Because everyone can connect to it in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Right? The amount of times, like if I share that from stage or something, the amount of people that come up and go, "Oh my God, my auntie died of cancer," and it's a wake up call, right? Because I'm not sitting here being the victim, because I know there's been worse things happen to other people and horrific things, but we need that shock value. Yeah. Because that's what stops people these days, right? We need to be shocked, and we need to be awed, and we need to go, wow, what are we going to do about it? Yeah. So it would be, I want people to realize that life is, because it's a tough conversation. I used to be a kid that, I'm scared of death, right, for me. But I've worked through it, and I've become a lot more at peace with it. I remember hearing Wayne Dwyer talk about this, where as he was sort of his last months, where he wasn't scared of dying because he'd become at peace with it, and he'd been able to embrace what it meant and all of this stuff, right? So that's why faith has such a strong thing. People believe in the afterlife, whether it's true or it isn't true, that's irrelevant. If that's what helps you get through, man, power to you, right? But for me, how I get through and how I realize and let things go fairly quickly and easily and not dwell on it for too long, I'm still human, is understanding that every single thing that is happening right now is supposed to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Even if you feel bad, sad, mad, angry about anything, you're supposed to be angry right now. That's cool, but you also have a decision to let it go. Everything, right? If your dog runs out on the road and it gets killed today, it was supposed to happen. Whilst it's not nice, and I don't wish that upon anyone, it was supposed to happen. That is, because when you live by that ethos of, you hear the words, everything happens for a reason, right? And I believe that, but it's a throwaway line, because when people hear it, if I said, oh yeah, my post is everything happens for a reason, people go, oh yeah, cool, yeah, I get it, scroll past. But once you can truly, deeply, at the end of it all, understand that everything was supposed to happen the way it did, there is no way, shape, or form it could have been changed or done any differently. Even if I should have said this. Like, yeah, you could have, but guess what? You didn't, and you weren't supposed to, because you were supposed to say what you did, because now you've got this lesson, and this is the path forward. For me, it gives me a sense of peace that, hey, man, like if I've upset someone, I was supposed to upset them. I don't want to. That's not who I want to be. Yeah. But it gives me the opportunity to reflect on that and go, look, am I truly living in accordance to who I want to be? That's the sort of the goal, right? It's like, am I living the way that I would look down from the sky and look at Brett Campbell and go, did you show up today? Did you live in accordance to how you would want to be? Did you speak to your team the way that you would want to be speaking to them? Did you do what you say you were going to do today? And just really shine a spotlight on people, making sure they're living their true, authentic life, and that life's way too short to be dwelling on the past. We need to look forward, move forward, and live in the present. Learn to find out who you truly are. Yeah. Right? Because once you do that, man, the world's yours. Within reason, of course. But
no, that's so true. And I guess I always say, I was like that tractor. You talk about working hard, and I'd love to have that competition to see who would work the most hours. But I was like a tractor that would just plow through and just to surge forward and ahead every single day. And watching my wife deliver Ethan, and then spending 2 days where you're just holding him in your arms and you're looking down. I made so many deep, pledges I put on my Facebook the other day, me speaking at the funeral, and the words that I spoke about in the funeral are now here. Like it's sort of manifested 6 years later, but I become a different person that day, and it was about, maybe if I didn't lose Ethan, maybe I would just go, hello kids, like that when I'm walking through the door. But now for me, it's sort of, I'm in the moment.
Probably not maybe, man. It would, like you would have.
Yeah. So
like it's heartbreaking, and I could only imagine what that would feel like. But it's given you something that other people don't have that you can be the voice for.
Yeah.
Right? You can be the voice for. You need to, back to your point, everyone needs to know that. Everyone needs to know the story. Why the story? What's the impact of that? What's the message that you're really trying to put out there from that? Like for me, the overarching method of when my friend passed was simply that, just because I could, it didn't mean I should. Just because everything looked great on the outside didn't mean it was on the inside. And that's that whole thing around mental health and everything now. It's like, you look at Hollywood stars ending their lives, it's like on the outside it looks good, but it's like when you go home to the apartment where you're sitting by yourself, man, you're still the same person. You're still that 4-year-old kid that's seen your dad throw your mum through the caravan window.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So being able to be aware of that and I wish that in the schooling system they were able to bring in like a personal development class that was mandatory, like how to treat people with respect and dignity, and how to be empathetic to your teammates and classmates. Fucking get rid of algebra. Like, get rid of that shit, right? Get rid of those. There's so many classes that are shit that I think if we put a vote right out now to the world saying, hey, how about we add a personal development class that teaches people how to be better humans? We can add a little form of meditation, 5-minute meditation at the end of it, so we can create some stillness in people's minds. And these ADHD overdriven kids who are hyped up on sugar and fucking games, right, on their phones with zero attention span to any human but the technology, everyone, like every sane person would vote, yep, that's a bloody great idea.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of the cooking class even. Like, we don't need to do a cooking class. We've got Uber Eats, right? But, I just feel like there's, and it gets me fired up, obviously, but it starts at that young age because, man, when you're going through a growth phase and learning to become a man and learning to become a woman, like, if you don't have the right pathway, it's even harder when you start to go, hold on a minute. You might be in your mid-20s going, who the fuck am I? Like, what am I even doing here? What's the point of this?
Yeah.
That narrative needs to be started early, man.
Yeah, totally. So what would you say your best bit of advice, it could be from a kid, it could be whenever, along the journey, the best bit of advice you've ever received?
Best bit of advice. I've received a lot of advice. I think one that sticks to my mind was it's better to be a part of something, it's better to be a part of something than a whole of nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I learned that when I was 16 and I spent my first day as a cabinet maker apprentice, and there was a tradesman over in the corner. My boss was giving me the tour around the factory, and there was a tradesman packing up his tools. And I was like, oh, what's he doing? He goes, he's leaving. It's his last day. He's going to start his own business. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, yeah, unfortunately, he probably won't make it, because it's cutthroat industry there and we're not in a big booming town or anything like that. But he wanted to go do his own thing. Respect to that. But my boss said, look, sometimes it's better to be a part of something big than a whole of something really small.
Yeah.
And I was like, which taught me that value of relationships, and you don't need to run the race by yourself. But the funny thing is it took me a while before I really learnt that lesson, because I always was I want to own the whole race course. Yeah. I don't want to own the team. I want to own the stadium.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've always had that sort of mentality of, and I didn't know why I had that. It was just a driving force. But when you actually realize it and you look at it, it's like, you know what? It's probably better just to own 5% of Facebook, right? Or 0.00001% of Facebook than it is to own my entire company.
Yeah.
So there's some valuable lessons when it comes to, what you say yes to and what you say no to,
And what about what would be the worst piece of advice? And you might not have adopted it, but
the worst piece of advice, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do anything you want. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah.
You can do anything that you can do.
Yeah,
right?
we were talking about this morning. Like,
Yeah.
just to spend maybe 60 seconds just explaining that.
Good
'cause
luck
it
with
is
60
really,
seconds. But it's true, right? Like, I hear this a lot. You can do anything, you know, put your mind to it and you can become amazing and you can become the greatest. It's like, no. Like, I'm not ever going to be an NBA star. My biology doesn't work out for that.
Yeah.
I'm never going to become the fastest sprinter in the world because my biology just doesn't work out for that. Like, I don't have long enough legs. My stride's not long enough. So I just want to make sure that advice that's being given, especially to younger people, is, you know, built upon strong foundations, because you're giving people false hope. You know, like, you can go and be a pop star. Nah, we've seen the TV shows. Someone goes on and they're doing an audition and they tank. And the judge is like, who told you to come on here? Oh, my mum said I can do anything. Bloody hell, well, she was wrong. You can't do this, right? So, sometimes facts are facts.
Yeah.
You know, well, not sometimes, all the time, facts are facts.
Yeah.
You can do what you can do,
Yeah.
right? Put your mind to something and you can see how far you can go, but don't get this falsehood that you can become a pop star.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, geez, it's probably debatable. Pop star, someone would debate me on it going, oh, you can use auto-tune, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. But the philosophy remains, right? You can't do whatever you put your mind to.
Yeah.
I want to fly.
Yeah.
Nah, don't have wings yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I know I'm using far out there examples because I have to use them to squash the argument.
Yeah.
I'm yet to see someone who can prove to me that whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve.
Yeah.
Nah.
No, that's totally makes sense. So, just in wrapping up, where do we find more about Brett Campbell and Claxon?
There's a thing called Google. Check out Google. That's always a good place to start. You go to brettcampbell.com.au or you can go claxon.agency, find me there, or jump on socials, connect with me, send me a message. I'm not, this day and age, it's not hard to find anyone, right?
That's right.
You've got one shot, so take it. You live one life, embrace it. Don't let fear tie you down, it'll mess you around. You've got one shot.